Hey there, it's Alex from the Jane team popping into your listening experience to tell you why we think Jane and PTs go together like exercise compliance and recovery. Jane is an all-in-one practice management software that provides online booking through a secure client portal, as well as administrative scheduling, payment processing, electronic charting, insurance billing, and more. We also provide unlimited customer support from people who really love helping you. Seriously, our team loves to answer any questions you might have about using our software, whether you're still considering Jane or you've been with us for years. So come get to know us at jane.app/physicaltherapy. Or if you know you're ready to get started, mention ICE Physio in your sign-up notes for a 1-month grace period. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, y'all. Good morning, folks. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. My name is Dustin Jones, and you are tuning in to Wednesday, the older adult segment. Excited to have you here. We're going to be talking about prioritizing strength versus hypertrophy in older adults. Julie Brower, good morning. Strength versus hypertrophy in older adults. Want to dive into that awesome question that we got at the MOA Live course this past weekend. Before we get into the goods, do want to mention that on March 2nd, our next cohort of MMOA Essential Foundations will be kicking off. Those seats are filling up rather quickly. We sold out the last cohort, so I'd probably get on that sooner than later if you're hoping to hop into Essential Foundations. We also have a bunch of live courses coming up. Some are available to the public, others are private. The next available public course is going to be in Atlanta, March 5th, with myself and Julie Brower. We're super excited about that course. If you're near that Atlanta area, we've got a little bit of room for you. I think there's about 7 or 8 spots left for that one before that one's sold out. So that's March 5th. All right, y'all. Prioritizing strength versus hypertrophy in older adults. So this past weekend, we had MOA Live in Des Moines, Iowa. Alex Germano was there. Sam Chamberlain was there as well. And we had some really awesome discussions with that group, as per usual with the folks that come to our courses, which we're very grateful for. But one person, right after we talked about exercise prescription, which in that lecture, we dive through a lot of the parameters of how you can tweak your dosage to achieve certain benefits and goals, right? It can be a lot. How can we prioritize strength training? How can we prioritize hypertrophy? How can we prioritize endurance? How can we prioritize improving power output? Lots of numbers, lots of things that we want to think about and consider. And this person asks, well, with the older adults that I serve, when should I prioritize strength versus hypertrophy? What's more important for older adults? And that's a really great question, right? I think it's something that we need to reflect on and dive into. And I don't want to be black and white about this because, as always, like it depends, right? The worst answer ever in the context of rehab. But I think there are some very common themes related to this question. So let's dive into this. So first thing I think we need to really value is our assessment, obviously, right? Like what are these people showing us? What deficits do they have? What goals do they have? What's pertinent to them in terms of, successful aging? What does success look like to them? And our assessment is really going to inform a lot of that, the direction of our plan of care, right? The challenging part in this is that oftentimes, especially if you work in geriatrics, you're going to find all kinds of quote unquote deficits, right? You're going to find folks that are having difficulty producing force. They have a strength deficit. They're demonstrating weakness, but they're also showing atrophy. They could benefit from some hypertrophy training. You're probably also going to see some deficits, maybe in endurance, maybe in balance as well. But typically, you're not seeing deficits in isolation. Usually, they are coexisting. And strength deficits and atrophy are typically in the same situation, which can be challenging, right? So, which do we really focus on? And then you couple your finding of your assessment with the reality of the situation for many of the folks that we're serving. A lot of older adults that we're serving, not all, right? But a good majority of the folks that many of you all are seeing, function, independence are a huge goal. These folks are kind of teeter-tottering on the ability to do certain things that are very important to them. Sometimes they're kind of flirting with that line of independence, of being able to stay in their home, for example. Some of these folks, a lot of their tasks that life is asking them to do is near or exceeding their max capacity. That's what we call 1RM living. Now think about that situation. And if their goal is to improve their function and their independence, but then they also have strength deficits and atrophy on board, what do we focus on? All right, that's a very difficult situation. I think this is where Zach Long's quote is very helpful. Zach Long, the barbell physio, the best hair in physical therapy. He's done several awesome PT on ices about hypertrophy, some of the mechanisms when we may want to prioritize it. And he has this quote that I think is original to him. I'm not sure. Someone double check this. But strength is specific, hypertrophy is not. Strength is specific, hypertrophy is not. What that's basically getting at is that you can train for strength, you can get stronger, but you won't necessarily get bigger muscles. You can also focus on trying to get bigger muscles and achieve that goal and not necessarily get stronger. But if you train strength, you're going to get stronger. Strength training is specific. If you follow those parameters of strength training, in JPT, the golden rule is at least the minimum of 60% of someone's 1RM, they're going to get stronger. So strength is specific, hypertrophy is not. Now go back to the common scenario, right? If function and independence is a goal of ours, these people also need to get stronger, but they also are demonstrating atrophy. But if function and independence are something that we're wanting to help them achieve, what's going to help them get there? Stronger muscles or bigger muscles? Stronger muscles or bigger muscles? Which one is going to get there? And if we think about this question, more times than not always, right? But more times than not, strength is the answer. And so, this question, prioritizing strength versus hypertrophy in older adults, which one should we focus on? Most of the time, it's going to be strength because you can almost guarantee that you're going to have an improvements in strength that's going to correlate to improvement in function and independence. But if you focus more on hypertrophy and getting bigger muscles, you're still rolling the dice. You cannot guarantee as confidently to be able to improve function and independence. So we're going to push strength training with most of our folks. Now, here's the beautiful thing about this is that many folks that we work with, and this obviously fluctuates from setting to setting, but in terms of the MMOA audience, right, the folks that are watching the PT on Ice Daily Show, many of your folks may be considered to be untrained, right? They may be relatively deconditioned. They may be relatively new to this type of exercise or higher intensity resistance training. The beautiful thing is that you can follow kind of the strength training parameters. You're going to get people stronger. You're also going to get them bigger muscles. You're going to see that hypertrophy effect as well. The newbie gains, if you will. And this is a beautiful thing. I definitely experienced this in the home health setting for sure, right? Many of you all can really attest to this. Folks in the SNF, sometimes in outpatient, right? But you will get strength and hypertrophy gains, even though your parameters are really speaking to really improving strength training. And that's a beautiful thing. And the reality is that if we focus on strength, we're probably going to get a more sizable impact on these very practical functional goals and a little bit of hypertrophy. And the literature is really showing that there's a ton of fluctuation or variability, I should say, in the parameters and strength training parameters that are going to achieve hypertrophy. You can do high intensity, low volume, and see some hypertrophy. You can also see very low intensity or low weight and high volume and see some hypertrophy gains. And so there's a lot more wiggle room in that department. It's a lot harder to get someone stronger, though, when you're lifting with relatively lighter loads at a higher volume. It's going to be much more potent if we are lifting at those relatively high loads and lower volume, lower rep schemes. So more times than not, strength training is going to be our priority when we're talking about older adults. Now, what about the other side of the coin, right? What situations, especially when we're talking about geriatrics, are we going to prioritize hypertrophy? When is it going to be a bigger deal to focus on hypertrophy as opposed to strength? That's a tough question, right? And I think in this situation, we need to ask, is there independence on the line here? Are we really concerned a ton about function? Are we concerned about falls? Are we concerned about a hospital readmission or potential disability? If that is not a concern or a big threat, then we probably have a little more wiggle room to where we may not be as strength focused and we may be able to focus more on hypertrophy. It may be a little safer to do that. Or think the post-op situation, right? People experience a lot of atrophy after, tons and tons of different procedures. That may be more pertinent to focus more on hypertrophy. I think this is where blood flow restriction training has a huge benefit for folks that are able to get some pretty significant gains under relatively lighter loads. You also see some strength gains as well, for sure, but you're able to see some pretty significant changes in terms of hypertrophy, and that can be leveraged very potently, definitely in that post-op situation or injury-related atrophy. I think those are perfectly fine. But that first one, if falls are on board, concern about falls, concern about a hospital readmission, if disability is near or in the imminent future, the lack of independence, the decline in function, man, strength needs to be a huge priority for these individuals. And we want to emphasize that early on, especially with knowing how sensitive these folks are and how quickly they can demonstrate meaningful change. We can really change someone's life for the better and have significant impact in a relatively short period of time. So those are my thoughts. I want to hear yours though. What situations should we prioritize hypertrophy in older adults, right? And I'm wanting to stay specific to this population. When are you really focused solely on getting bigger muscles? I would love to hear your thoughts of when you find that clinically valuable. If you're in different settings, if you're in acute care, if you're in SNF, some of these different settings, let's hear it from you on Instagram. If you're watching on YouTube, comment there. Would love to get a good conversation going about this topic, because from my standpoint, the folks that I work with, strength training is usually taking the cake here and being more of a priority. But I would love to hear your thoughts. Engage with us here on social media, Instagram or YouTube. So let me know. Great talking to y'all today. Appreciate your time. Appreciate all the people that are coming out to our courses just across the board. MMOA is rocking the live courses. The online courses are as well. We're seeing awesome engagement in all of our courses of ICE and with the Hump Day Hustle email that's about to go out in about 20 or about 18 minutes here. So we're just grateful for y'all engaging in this content, continuing to discuss, debate these different things that ultimately we're all better as a result. So we're very grateful for that. All right, y'all have a lovely rest of your Wednesday, and I will talk to y'all soon. Take care.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.